Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to start laying the footers or the pads down for the bunker. And these are the pads that have to be moved around. And then these are the pillars that are going to go on top of those pads that will accept some brackets that are adjustable just in case there is some settling that you can adjust them up or down. Now my goal for today is to be able to place at least 4 of these footers by myself, which is why I have a sled here. So I'm going to try to put them on the sled and push them to where, or pull them to where I need them and place them. I'm going to try to place the 4 corners so that I can find square. Once I build the bunker, I am going to hopefully have enough funds to get the rest of this filled in. And somewhere in that area over there is probably where I'm going to have my chicken coop. And then I'm going to set up a nice little garden somewhere around here. The greenhouse is going to go over there somewhere. So anyways, it's a work in progress. But today, my goal is to get the square found on this. Let me go ahead and show you what tools I'm going to use for that, in addition to the sled. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we need to have the thermocell out here. I have one in the middle of my work area. And then I've got another one over here where I've got my tools. This is the second one that I have, and I have them going. It does keep the mosquitoes away. Of course, we'll need a little bit of radio. And I have a couple of work gloves. Of course, we need some water. I have a couple of levels. I've got my beat up BK2, which is an awesome knife. I got some strings. I got a square. I've got a good measuring tape. Oh, goodness, ladies and gentlemen, look at this. This is my neighbor's dog. Luna, come here. Come here, Luna. Look at these dogs. They are huge. They're very good dogs, too. How you doing, girl? They're good dogs. I always treat them really nice when they come over. I think her name, the second one, I think her name is Mila. But they come over every once in a while. They break out of their cage and they play with my dogs. And they get along really good together. So I never throw a fuzz when they come over here. Unless they want to take a poop in my driveway. So now I'm going to go ahead and place these pads. It'll probably take me a while because I'm on my own right here. But I think I have a good plan. I'm just going to take my sled right here. I'm going to cut this plastic off and just try to pull it into the sled. Hopefully it won't crack the sled. Here I'm adjusting the second pad that I placed, and now I'm measuring the long side of the build, which will be about 20 feet long. Right now I'm only trying to get them close to where they need to be so that I can begin leveling the ground before I find the pad's final resting place. So before I even try to find square, I just want to get them close to where square is. Then I can level the ground, and then I can go ahead and put the pads in their final resting place before I start putting the pillars on and building on top of them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so as you can see, I've got all my footers down and I've got my pillars on top of my footers. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out how much I'm going to have to dig. Because as you can see, this footer over here is sitting a lot lower than this one right here. So what I'm going to do is, or as you can see, what I've done is I've put a plank, or a 2x6, across the first 2 footers, which are roughly 10 feet apart. And I put a level on it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the level up to see how far high it needs to go before it levels. And that'll give me roughly the number of inches that I'm going to have to dig. I'm going to have to do that twice for this section here. And then for the other section over there, I'll add those 2 numbers together and it'll tell me how far deep down I'll have to go over here. Once I dig deep down here and I make sure that it's level, I'll do the same thing with the middle, and then I'll make any adjustments that I need to make with the one at the far end. I'm not sure how well you can see that because of the sun, but you'll see the bubble is way to that side. So as I lift it up, when that bubble gets in the middle there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the other side here and measure how many inches it is from the bottom of the level all the way to where it touches the stud. So we're at about 4.5 inches. And I'll just go ahead and write it right here. 4.5, so I don't forget. And this one here is about 4.5 inches as well. So that means that my first pillar over there, I'm going to have to dig down around 9 inches. Make sure that it's level before I put it in there. And it should be pretty even with this pillar here in the back. So I'm going to get to work on that. That's going to take me quite a while. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the first hole that I dug and leveled. So this is all the dirt that came out of that hole. Now when I finish digging the hole to the depth that I want it, I always put a little bit of sand in the bottom, just a little bit, so it can help me level out the pad. And then when I think it's level, I put a torpedo level on it, and I stand on it, and I make sure that it's showing level in all directions. So I go ahead and stand on it, and as long as it's in between those lines, it should be good. See that? And I jump on it to make sure that it's nice and stable. I take my shovel while I'm standing on it, and I pack it in really good on all sides to where I can walk on it without worrying about it getting unlevel. All right, so I can walk on no problem, put the level, and it's still good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the rear one, because this one I have a little bit of digging to do, not that much. But this one over here, that's going to be the one that's probably going to take me about 2 hours, because I'm going to have to do that hole extra wide to make sure that I line these up nice and even. And then I think I might be done for today. This is what it looks like after a lot of work. Look at the hole that I had to dig by myself. This is like almost 2 feet deep. Oh, well, Victor helped just a little bit. Victor helped a little bit. No, ladies and gentlemen, Victor tackled this hole pretty much 90% of it. And this is, you know, pretty heavy duty work right here. I certainly would have still been digging if it wasn't for Victor. But this is what it's looking like. So we have our first line of pillars. Okay. And on the back one, just so you can see how deceiving it is when you look at property or land, how deceiving it is as far as the slope. You see this rear pillar over here? I had to double stack it, because if I would not have double stacked this pillar, then the first one, the hole would have had to have been about 6 inches deeper, and I would have had to have cut into the ground right here, so that the 4x6 that I'm putting on there would lay flat. But right now, this is all level and it's in line. Now, these 2x6s, this is not what I'm using for the foundational joists. I'm using 4x6x10s that are treated lumber. So we're going to go ahead and put one from this, a 4x6x10 from here, that'll reach to the middle of this bracket right here. And then another 4x6x10 that'll reach from the middle of this bracket to the end, and it will overhang by just a few inches. Right? And we're going to do that with another 2 rows. So this row that you see right here is going to be duplicated, another one right here, and then another one somewhere around there. All right, because our structure is going to be 12 foot wide, and what you see here is about 20 feet long. So you see how deceiving it is when the land slopes downward? Look at the distance between the top and the bottom of those pillars compared to the front. And that is level. All right, this is day 1 of our project. I will bring you all back when all of these holes are finished, probably around August or so. Just kidding, probably in the next couple of days. All right, and then I'll show you what it looks like right before I find square. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're at so far. As you can see, we have the 2 far sides of the beams put up, and today we're going to work on the middle one. And look at how much of a difference there is in height. Over here, on these 2 front posts, we had to dig down. Well, Victor did most of the digging. Had to dig down probably about 10 inches or so. That way we didn't have to use as many pier blocks on the back. You see how many pads there are? I had to double stack the pads and then put the pier block on top of them. And in addition to that, I had to go and buy some 1.5 inch pads to put under these pier blocks right here to give me an extra 1.5 inch, because look, it's just too much. So I don't want this bracket to be so far up, because if you take a look, let me see if you can see this. See, there's only a little bit sticking in. So I'm more than likely going to go ahead and put a couple of pier blocks in each of these. That way I can lower this bracket down. So the 2 pier blocks will probably end up bringing this, or the 2 pads will probably end up bringing this up this high. So that way most of the bracket will be inside the pier block. I'll have to do that for this one as well, and more than likely also for the one that we put here in the middle. So today our objective is going to be 2 things. To put the rest of the pads, make sure that they're even, make sure that they're level. Do the same thing with the 3 that we need here. And then we're going to go ahead and put on our first piece of floor joist, 1 on each end, so that we can make sure that we are 100% square. But once I check for square for the last time, I'll show you how I do that. That way those of you that don't know what I'm talking about by finding square will know exactly what I mean. Wake up, Victor. I'm all done. Did you even do anything today? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to show you what we got done today. We got a lot done. Everything's looking really good. We went ahead and put in the last pillar right there. And you'll notice that this pillar doesn't have a footer under it, like this one and all of the other ones do. And you'll see what the reason for that is later on as we progress during the project. So we went ahead and found square. Actually, like Victor, what were we off? Like a 1/4 inch? We were about a 1/4 inch off square, which is just fine. Those are all the beams. They're all up. All I have to do is nail them together. Everything is pretty darn level, which is really nice. And what we're going to do with these big pillars, and actually with these as well, I'm going to be building some forms to put around these. And the forms are going to come up to about here, right? They're going to come up to about here. And there's going to be about 4 inches of space in between the outer shell of the form and the actual concrete. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill those up with concrete. That way everything will be binded together with concrete. I'll be doing that with all of these. I just ordered the concrete today and it'll be here on Wednesday.
This floor is uncomfortable.
That's because it's not finished, Victor. You're not supposed to sleep on I-beams. So like I said, probably on Monday or Tuesday, I'll be building forms. I'm just going to build like maybe 2 of them and then do it as I go, do 2 every day or so. And then once that's done, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be able to get the floors put on. And then we'll be able to start putting up some walls. So this is what it's looking like so far. Construction sites never look neat, even though I try to keep it as neat as possible. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're at so far. Let me tell you a couple of the things that I want to get done today. I have found square. As you can see, all of those floor joists that you see there, they are the floor joists that will support the actual structure. What you see here that doesn't have any floor joists, that's going to be a small deck. That's going to be an 8-foot long deck. That will be, obviously, the entrance to the bunker. So I wanted to make sure that I first and foremost found square on this part right here where the actual structure is going to go. I'm actually off by, I believe, like a 1/4 inch. But that's not a big deal. These joists, or these 4x6 by 12s, they come about a 1/2 inch longer than 12 feet. So they're about 144.5 inches long. I did not trim them down for that exact same purpose, because that way if I was up to a 1/2 inch off on my square, I can still lay my walls up, get them perfectly square, and then trim off whatever excess there is to trim off in the end, which would be maybe like a 1/2 inch on one side, and then the other side should be good. But I'll show you that when we get to that part. So I'm off by roughly about a 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8, something like that, but that's pretty acceptable. Okay, so now I have gone ahead and secured the 2 far end joists, this one and the one over there in the end. those are both secured to this structure. So now we know that we're going to be able to maintain square. Okay, so now let me go ahead and show you how I take a look to make sure that we're level and that we are square. So the first thing I do is I go ahead and take a board that's 12 feet long. And as you can see here, it's pretty flat on there. There may be a little gap of a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch off of the board. And that just goes to the manufacturing. These boards, some of them have a really nice bend to them. Like, look at that right there. I'm not sure if you can see this. Let me walk you over here. This is terrible. You see this gap? This board is perfectly level. And this board is perfectly level as well. And as you can see here, it's tight. There, it's pretty tight. But look at this gap. That's because there is a bow on this board here. But we're going to go ahead and fix that. We're going to leave it like this because it's level. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get some brackets and brace all of these boards from here to here. Okay, that's what we're going to do with these. In addition to that, we're going to go ahead and put a big lug nut or lug screw right through here all the way down on all of these middle boards. So in addition to making sure that we are level over here by using this board, I grab my level over here and I have a 4-foot level, as you can see, and I just go every other board. You see that? You can see that we're right there in the middle of the lines, which is where we want to be. So then I'll just go to my next 4, check my bubble. As long as we're in between the lines, I'm pretty happy, ladies and gentlemen. And there we go, we're in between the lines. So we're level, and let me go ahead and show you how we find square. So as you can see right here, I went ahead and put a small screw in the very corner of this board right here. That's so that my tape measure can stay on there and I can do this just by myself without any help. So I'm going to go ahead and take this tape measure and extend it from this corner all the way to that corner. And let's see what we come up with. So as you can see, here's the other nail. And you can see that we're sitting at roughly 204 inches, maybe 203 3/4. All right, so roughly 204 inches. All right, but we'll go ahead and call it, we can really call it 203 7/8. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go from that corner over here to this corner. And as you can see over here, we are at 204 1/4. So we're off about 3/8 of an inch. Now, from prior experience, I've found that if you keep your square within a 1/2 inch, you should be okay. And that is exactly why I left these boards a 1/2 inch longer than what they're supposed to be. Let me show you how long these are. So you see right here, the structure is going to be 12 feet by 12 feet. And if you see right there where there's 12 feet, this board is actually 12 feet and almost 3/4 of an inch long. So that gives me 3/4 of an inch to be off by square, which is a beautiful thing because I'm off by square about half of that. So what that means is that when I put my floorboards on, I can actually trim the excess to make sure that it is 100% square before I start building my walls. And I will show you what that looks like once I get my floorboards up, and you'll see that I'll be able to trim the excess off without having to compromise the integrity of it being square. We'll actually make sure we have a perfectly square structure. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do before we go ahead and tie these down or nail these down is we're going to go ahead and pour concrete. As you can see here, I used some scrap wood and I made a form that goes around the pillars. And as you can see, the form goes up about halfway up of this pillar. So I'm going to pour concrete all the way in here. That way it consumes everything that's there and turns it into one. Normally, whenever you're pouring concrete on concrete that's already hardened and cured, you have to use a special solution to mix with the concrete. But this concrete is pretty fresh. So I'm okay with going ahead and pouring it right over this. And that will bind everything together. It will give us a nice solid structure. And then I'm going to do one at a time. So today I'm going to do this one. Tomorrow that one. The next day that one. Then I'm going to take my form. All right. I'm going to take my form. I'm going to cut it probably about in half. And I'm going to go ahead and do these as well. These three. Now the front ones, this one right here, I'm just going to pour concrete into it without a form until it comes about halfway up the pillar. But I will only do that when I find that I have square, right? Once I put my floor joists on here and I find that I have square, so I will measure from the edge of that board to this corner, and then from the edge of that corner to this board to find out that I have true square. Once I put my floor joists on, then I'll fill these up with concrete after I secure a couple of my joists, making sure that it's square. Now this right here, ladies and gentlemen, remember I told you that I didn't have to have a pad under this one because this is not going to support as much weight as these are. So if you can picture this, picture a structure that starts at that very first board where you see the level. All right, you'll see a structure there with a door. Then this is going to be a deck. However, I'm going to go ahead and put a roof that goes from the top of this wall right here, where I put this structure, and it's going to go ahead and be supported by two beams that will sit on top of this pillar and on top of that pillar. All right, so that's why those two pillars are going to be completely full of concrete, you know, up to about halfway up the pillar. And this one right here, I didn't really put an extra pad under it because it's just not going to support as much weight as these two will. All right, so there's going to be two pillars going up supporting our roof from that side to this side, and then this one right here is just going to support the weight pretty much of the wood that I'm going to lay on top of it to make it into a deck. I hope that all of that made sense. Now, for those of you that are professional carpenters, keep in mind, I am not a professional carpenter. I am just doing stuff that makes sense to me, that is going to give me a structure that is sturdy, right? That is going to hold up to the snow. We really don't get much wind here at all. But this structure, in my opinion, will be very sturdy. It will hold up to the snow with no problems. And as you can see, these floor joists that I used, I could have gone with 2x6s instead of 4x6s, but I really wanted to double up on the strength. So that's where we're at right now, ladies and gentlemen. My next step is to go into town, take care of some business, and then come back and start pouring concrete, or at least start pouring a couple bags for that side over there. Let's show you our last job of the day, ladies and gentlemen. I did not record myself mixing this concrete because it's just mixing concrete. It's like mixing oatmeal with water. But I used this little sled here to mix 5 60-pound bags of concrete. And as you can see, you remember that I had this form on here. And I went ahead, it took 5 bags. It took 300 pounds of concrete and gravel mix to mix it up. And as you can see, it's right up to the level where I wanted to be. That is perfect. So now we are done for the day. Once we put this form on and we fill it with concrete, there is no hammering, no screwing, no nothing. So like, for example, I almost made a mistake and went to go ahead and hammer a piece of wood in the front so that I can square the front, thinking, well, might as well get that done. I can get that done and fill in the 2 front posts with concrete. And right before I started putting the board on, I was like, wait a minute. There can't be any disruption whatsoever. All right, this form is actually holding up very well, as you can see. Take a look. It's got a little bit of a bow on this side here, but other than that, it looks really good. So what we'll do what I will do with this is I'm going to let this dry overnight, and probably around noon tomorrow, I'm going to go ahead and come back, take the form off. In about 24 hours or so, it should be nice and cured to the point where I can actually take the form off. Once I take this form off, what I will be doing is going to this corner over here and doing this corner next. And then I'll do this one last for the back row. Once I get these 2 done, so it'll take another 2 days because I'm only going to do 1 per day. I only made 1 form. Once I get these 2 done, I'll be coming up to the front. And tomorrow I'm getting a delivery of wood, of some treated wood, which is what I'm going to use to form the deck on this part of the build. Once I get the treated wood, I'm going to go ahead and attach one to this side of the deck, to this end, from this end right here, to the other end. So I'm going to have one like this and like this coming right across. And then I'm going to make sure that I find square. And as soon as I find square over here, which is only off right now by like a ½ inch. So that means that I probably have to pull or push one side or another for like a ½ inch or maybe a ½ inch at the most from one side to the other. Once I do that and I get the wood secured on there, I can go ahead and pour these 3 front ones. Once I pour these 3 front ones, I'll go ahead and come in. I'll cut my form. I'll cut the form that I'm using right now in half and go ahead and pour these 3 middle ones. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that's what it looks like. The part of a build that's the most difficult for me and most tiresome for me is this part, is building your foundation and then getting everything square. Once I have everything square and I've got my deck on over here, putting on the floor on this part, it will be easy peasy. And then building the walls is just a matter of taking your time, doing it right. The way that I'm going to build my walls is going to be like a modular build, meaning that I'm going to build one wall fully. I'm going to put the outside sheeting on it while it's on the floor. I'm going to put the insulation on it, the vapor barrier, and all of that stuff on it while it's on the floor. That way I don't have to be working off of a ladder. And that's how I'm going to build the walls, and I'll show you as we go along. But this is where we're at so far. Pretty good progress for an old man, I'm not going to lie. And Victor has been out here, but I really don't like to bother Victor too much whenever he has to work. He does need to get his rest so that he can do a good job at his work. So this is it for now, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time.